And we are live.
Okay, well, we will call the meeting to order. This is our regular February Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee meeting, February 16th, 2022. And I sent out the meeting minutes from both our regular January meeting and our special meeting that was held on the 24th of January. And I would like to ask if there are any corrections or changes to the minutes.
They look fine to me. I'll move approval.
I said, I think you've only got 2 voting members here.
We've got 3, counting myself, we've got 3. So we have 3 absent. So I don't know if we can actually take action. I was expecting David to come and maybe he will be here.
Well, I'll second it just in case.
Do you have a majority?
We have 3 out of 6 members present.
You don't have a quorum then.
That's right. So let's hope that David will join our meeting. So we'll just wait on the minutes and I'll let the mayor make any update he would like to.
Oh, what to talk about? I think what we want to talk about today is money. Okay. I pulled out the most recent Kelly King through the end of January. And I don't know if you had a chance to look at that. But under Parks and Recreation, there are 2, actually 3 line items. The total amount that was appropriated for Parks and Recreation the current fiscal year was $291,500. And the unspent balance is $249,982, just about $250,000 unspent. Now, of that, $220,000 was appropriated for structures, and that was contemplated to be the children's playground and the other stuff in Little Hunting Creek Park. And of that, 213, almost 214,000 remains. Now, other than that, there are 2 items. One is called Parks Enhancements and one's called Parks Maintenance. This all goes into the unspent balance of 250,000, which is what guides me what I can write checks for or not. But in the breakdown on the workbook, there's the item of Parks Maintenance. 15,000 was appropriated, and there's 10,452 left. Parks Enhancements, 47,000 was appropriated, and 17,500 and change are left. So the budget remaining for those 2 items totals right at $28,000. Just so you know what you still have between now and the end of June for just about anything the Parks wants to do. Okay.
Ron and I have already had some conversations about how to spend that money, and I think we will.
Just out of curiosity, what do you plan to do with it?
Well, the $10,000 maintenance budget remaining, I think Ron mentioned at the last meeting that there are 2 footbridges on the Blue Trail that he would like to have replaced. They're sort of getting undermined with a little bit larger structure in the style of the most recent bridge on the Blue Trail. And we think that will take the majority of that $10,000. Jump in here if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm gonna meet with Jack probably next week, and I'll get an exact quote on that. That and there's some small equipment that we have to buy too. We need new leaf blowers and some new weed eaters and that type stuff.
So what plans do you have for the 17,005?
Okay. We still have, some money owed to OHM. They billed us partially for the plan for the bridge, and I expect that to come in that's almost $3,000. And then we met with Steve Emley after the last meeting about the two areas of concern for trail improvement. One was the stair step crossing on the Blue Trail, a stream crossing, and then a section of the Green Trail that really needs to have a more permanent solution. It gets washed away when we have heavy rain events. Steve told us that he expected the OHM group could create a plan for those two areas where they would describe the problem, look at recommended solutions to the problem with enough detail so that we could get contractors to bid on those proposals. He thought that the OHM piece would be $3,000 to $4,000 just off the top of his head. He thinks that those two areas, the corrections, would be somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000. So my thought, and that this is one of the things I was going to talk about today, my thought is I would like to get approval to go ahead and let OHM do the initial preliminary work for us, and then we'll see, once we have an idea of what the cost will be for the actual work, we could either do one or maybe both of the projects this year, just depending on how much money we have left. Anything else that I missed, Ron?
Nope, I think you got it.
And so far, we haven't had any Boy Scout or Scout reimbursement requests, but when I get to the Scout report, we do have a couple of Scouts interested. And then there's still some money left in the Putney Pond Transition Fund, but that will be spent before the end of the year. That's for continuing to cut and treat the bush honeysuckle and other invasives around the edge of the pond.
Yeah, on the Boy Scout reimbursements, $4,500 was appropriated and none of that has been spent to date.
That's correct.
It's because the
And-
Boy Scouts haven't been meeting.
And on the Putney Pond transition, 5,000 was appropriated and $3,800 of that is left. So that's where you are with
Right.
that.
They started the stump cutting treatment in the fall and got rained out, essentially. The weather did not allow them to continue. They do plan to come back and finish. They've got about 2.5 more days of work in the budget, and they expect to come back probably in the late May, early June timeframe and finish that up. So I expect that money to be spent.
So it looks to me like the existing budget pretty much covers all of the things that you want to do, with the exception of the new bridge.
That's correct.
Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. It's my understanding that that is approximately $75,000. Is that right?
Yes, the recommendation from OHM was that the project itself would cost just under $75,000. They suggest having a contingency amount added to that, and I guess for anything unexpected that might come up.
How much?
So I think my request for the budget amendment amount was $82,000.
82?
Mhm.
Well, let me address where we are with that. In order to do that, or really anything else that's not currently budgeted, we will need an amended budget. And John Carter and I have prepared such a document to be presented at the next regular meeting, which is next Tuesday, for a first reading. If it gets a first reading and later it gets passed, that would be in sometime mid-March. And what would be in it? Well, it's pretty simple. The amount of the ARPA money which we've received minus, well, that was 635. And the amount that was already put in the revenue stream was 308. And then we got new advice from the Treasury Department, and that enables us to put in the remaining portion of that 635 so that the whole 635 can go in. What that, just arithmetic, what that amounts to is adding $327,000 into revenue. So there'll be a new 300, assuming that it's passed, would be a new 327,000 going into budget. Okay, where's that going to go? The police department needs to get new radios. They must get them in order to be able to communicate with Metro in the near future. And that amount is about $90,000. Plus, they want to exchange their firearms for new ones, and that'll be about another roughly $10,000. I think the total of both, going from memory, is $103,400 for those two that would go into the police part of the budget, the amended budget. And whatever you take that away from the 327, that would be 220, approximately $224,000 that would be allocated elsewhere. And my thinking is to allocate that into parks, but we'll see what the rest of the council wants to do with it.
Sounds good to me.
I like,
Well, before you get too excited, a lot of that would go into Little Hunting Creek Park. Now, Little Hunting Creek Park is not going to get anywhere near built this fiscal year. I mean, that's going to spill over into the next fiscal year quite a bit. So I don't really know. I mean, we could put all of it into parks and use a lot of it for Little Hunting Creek Park, but I don't know how much of it we'd actually spend this year, this fiscal year. Some of it, yes. All of it, probably not. And as far as what guides me and what I can allocate money toward, if it's under in the budget ordinance, it would simply be Parks and Recreation. So that covers a lot of sins. The workbook is really handy dandy guide for where we put this amount and that amount and so forth. But what binds me as a matter of law is that bottom number. So that's the way I see it. That's it. So I think bottom line, Linda, if the amended budget passes, as I envision it, the money would be there along about toward the end of March for you all to go ahead and order up the building of the bridge. We'll have to wait and see what the council does.
Right. So would you envision that the budget amendment will be presented at the regular February meeting and
Yeah.
the second reading would be at the regular March reading, or would you envision a special meeting for second
I
reading?
haven't had a whole lot of luck with special meetings because people who don't like what I'm proposing just decide they won't come and then I don't have a quorum.
Yeah, got it.
So I'll probably stick with the regular meetings.
Okay,
I mean, I could try for a special meeting, but I don't. We'll see.
Good. Anything else?
Go on and on, but it's not really parks related. Just as a matter of, everyone is keenly interested in this, I'm going to have my deposition taken sometime in the next 2 weeks by LDG's lawyers. So that ought to be an interesting day.
All right. Well, we've already discussed some of the issues that I wanted to bring up under parks updates. But there's a couple of other things I wanted to go through. And one is the invasive plant removal that's been done, and that's some of the new species of concern that Jacqueline raised a couple of months ago. I have talked to ICF, who's done our invasive plant removal, and I wanted to kind of touch base with them about what they have and have not done in Harrods Creek Park, and then also what their thoughts are for controlling these other plant species. And the good news is, year to date, they've pretty much, well, some of this was last fiscal year, some of it was this fiscal year, but they have pretty much done this, what they call stump cut and treatment of the big woody invasive plants like bush honeysuckle, tree of heaven, privet, and some of the other plants, pretty much all along the trails. In the spring, they worked on the blue trail. They went as far as the cutoff to the green and red trails. And then right before the end of June, we had a little bit of additional money available. So they worked on stump cutting parts of the Orange Trail. They didn't quite get that all done. Then in October, well, the August to October timeframe, they did some more work at the stump cutting variety, and also did some foliar spraying. When they come through and stump cut, they're just taking out the big stuff, and they work with chainsaws, portable chainsaws, the little electric ones. And then, oh no, I think they're gas. And then they spray it with a herbicide. But they don't even bother with the little plants, the little saplings that are coming up. So then they go back in the summer, fall timeframe, after all the flowers are done blooming, and they go back and spray those areas to get the small stuff. And they were able to do parts of that. So what they still have left to do is finish off the foliar spraying, but they really can't do that until the spring flowers are done. So that would be at the earliest, it would be June, but we've already spent all our money for this fiscal year. So I envision they would start in July, August, and work into the fall, depending on how it fits their schedule and how weather allows. And I'm going to be working with them to really get a handle on what to put into our budget request for the next fiscal year. But in terms of the new plants that are of concern that were raised a few weeks ago or months ago, one of them was a Japanese chafflower, and another one was the fountain grass. And they said that both of those can be sprayed with the foliar spray. And when they're working on those areas of the trail, when they see those, they can just add that to the list of plants that they're working on. There's another one that was called a small carpet grass. And they basically said it's kind of like the Japanese stilt grass. You just can't control it. Once it gets in, you can work and work and work, but you're not going to be successful. So their advice was don't even try. Now, the lesser celandine is in the Little Hunting Creek Park and some of the trails near streams in Putney Pond, the woodland trails of Putney Pond. And I've had conversations with ICF and also conversations with Major Waltman, who is the project manager for the Olmsted Parks Conservancy. This plant, it has a beautiful yellow flower. It's really pretty, but it has just exploded in Little Cunning Creek Park and some of the trails at Putney Pond in the last couple of years. There's a couple of problems with this plant. It's very difficult to control. Major Waltman said that they've given up in the streams of Cherokee Park because anytime you have a flooding event, the pieces of the plant break off and they get carried downstream and they reseed another area. But he did say he thought it would be beneficial to try to keep it out of the upland areas in Putney Pond, the woodland trails in Putney Pond, because he said those are really high quality natural areas, and he thought that it'd be worth making an effort. Now, one problem we've got with this plant is that you have to hit it with an herbicide before it blooms, which is in the late March to early April timeframe. In talking to ICF, they thought that they could spray those areas in a couple of days. And I did put some money in our budget amendment request to include a couple of days of treatment for this plant only. Now, we still may not be successful, but I thought it was worth a try. And depending on if the city council passes the budget amendment and when it gets passed, we may or may not have hit the window to do it this year. So I've asked for the money. If we get it, we'll work with ICF to see if we're too late in the season or if they could spend a couple of days, depending on their schedule, the weather, and everything else. So I'm just putting that out there, and I'd like to hear some comments from people on this call.
Linda, I have a question about the balance we need to seek between wanting to control the invasives as opposed to the environmental harm that we might be doing by, using the foliar spray so near to our streams.
They use there are two different kinds of herbicide. One is approved by EPA for use within 10 feet of water. And that could be a marsh. It could be, you get a flood, so an area that's usually dry is now wet. If there's water there when they're spraying, they have to use this other formulation. There's always some possibility of some collateral damage when you're using foliar sprays. I think they're extremely careful, and that's why they time the use of it for times that are going to be less detrimental to other native plants.
Linda, how much money are you talking about that for this?
The budget
invasive removal that may need to be done in March?
I've asked for $3,000.
Well, you've got almost $250,000 in the parks budget unspent so far.
Right.
So it
Although
seems to me you could go ahead and spend $3,000.
yeah, I'm waiting to see how much the bridges and things cost. Ron and I have had a couple of back and forths about this too, because it may be that we're throwing good money after bad if we're trying to control something that's not going to be successful. I would like to get the park infrastructure projects. They're a little higher priority, I think. And Ron, maybe you can weigh in on that.
Well, that's entirely up to you. I'm just making the point about where the money is.
Yeah, my biggest concern is if we know we're fighting a losing battle, then why waste the money on it?
What losing battle?
With the what's it called again?
Celandine.
I've always called it frog grass. It's the stuff that grows in the field. It's been out in the field for like I've been here 21 years and it's been there since I've been here. Matter of fact, I use it to tell when the morels are getting ready to come up.
You know where morels are?
No, don't.
Now we know.
Never seen one. Don't know what they look like.
Yeah, I guess my priority would be to do the infrastructure, the equipment, because we know we're going to need to do that. If we
Yeah.
miss this year for treating the celandine, we can try next year. We could, if we decide to spend $3,000 and treat it this year, then we can reevaluate how successful that is next year. But once we are past that early April window, we've got to wait till next year anyway. So.
Personally, I'd like to just see how much of it's there. I mean, because I really don't. I can think of a couple of little spots on the trails, but I mean, see how bad it is, and then plan for it. But if it's been here all this time, it's not going anywhere, so it'll be there to hit next year.
I think it's really increased in amount in the past couple of years, and part of that might be that we've had a couple of pretty wet springs, and it's a water-loving plant. So, any other comments or observations on that?
Those are weighty matters. I don't know how you do it.
I'm sorry?
Said those are weighty matters. I don't know how you do it.
We do the best we can, right?
Sure you do.
Let me give a scout update since Lynn's out of town. He has 2 scouts that are actively starting their plans. One is named Seth Jolly. I don't know which troop he's with, but he is interested in replacing the Putney Pond Woodland Trail Bridge. This is the first bridge you come to if you enter the trails from the parking circle. And in looking at it, Lynn met with the scout and his father and then sent Ron and me some pictures. One of the reasons that the bridge has not been very successful, well, there's 2 things. We used a lighter weight wood. This was the first bridge that they built, and we got better at planning more substantial structures. The second is that evidently one edge of the bridge is on a big tree root, and it couldn't really be secured appropriately. So they looked at moving the trail a small distance to a crossing of the stream that is not as wide. So it will be a shorter bridge. It'll also be part of the project to move the trail. And he thinks that that will be a fairly easy thing to do given the topography. So Ron and I have given our thumbs up on that plan. The second scout is Levi Lucas, and he's going to finally fix the Orange Trail mileage markers. They were not completely installed properly. Some of them have washed away, found, and got stuck in the trail, but not at the right mileage marker point. So he's going to fix that. And then he's also going to gravel a portion of, there's a connector trail from the parking lot in Harrods Creek Park to the Orange Trail. And if you're facing the building that exists, to the left of the building is the kiosk that was recently built. And just to the left of that is the connector trail. And there's a sign that says "To the Blue Trail." So that is all washed out. About the only thing showing are tree roots. And we just think it'd be a really good place to put some gravel in to keep that from eroding further. And so both of those young men are in the planning process, and they will bring their project plan for our approval, hopefully in the next few months. And then I anticipate they would do the work in the spring. I also wanted to just have a little discussion about how we feel about activities in the parks. If we think we can have a flower walk this year safely. If not, is there some way that we could maybe have a do-it-yourself flower walk and sort of label the flowers, put some kind of little signs down there, or other activities that might be more appropriate. So I'd just like to open that up for some discussion, if anyone has any thoughts.
Well, you have your wildflower walk coming up, don't you?
Well, we haven't had it for the last couple of years because of COVID. And I'm asking if we feel we could safely bring it back this year.
I think so. I
Well,
think
it's outdoors.
the being outdoors, I think we'll be fine.
I like that. Is Jacqueline, Carolyn, you led it one year, didn't you? Or do you?
Yeah, I usually bring up the rear, and I'm
Oh.
not sure that I'm comfortable doing that yet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just me, but Jacqueline might be.
So that might be, I guess, the first place to start, I guess.
Right. And typically we have, well, when we've had it, we've had two different weekends in April because the flowers come out at different times. And I'm happy to contact Jacqueline and see if she's interested in doing it again this year.
Your ideas of putting little markers, not for a long amount of time, like a short amount of time, but that way, for people like Carolyn who would maybe rather enjoy it on their own time, like, in a very low population experience, could still walk through and identify. Now, Carolyn, you already know what they are, but for
Yeah.
for the rest of us who don't, go through.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what that is.
Though I kind of feel like in the park
Would it be
setting,
intrusive?
to me, it would detract. And the flowers change so rapidly anyway
That's a good point.
that,
Correct me if I'm wrong though, Carolyn. It seems to me the last year that we had the flower walk that Jacqueline had some kind of little thing she stuck in the ground and wrote the names on it. And it was just for that day or a couple days. And then they were
I
taken
don't
out.
recall that at all.
Okay, I'll have to ask Jacqueline because I thought she did that one year. And she just had, something like you'd put in your vegetable garden when you
Yeah.
plant the seeds, just something very, but we can talk to.
And the other thing for me is that John has his knee replacement surgery scheduled for April.
Right.
So, I'm just going to be super cautious about interacting with people through that time frame. And so, even outside.
I completely understand. That makes perfect sense.
Linda, for what it's worth, I'll chime in. I think going ahead and scheduling something would be terrific. I think we all understand some people won't be comfortable participating. I think an awful lot of people with it being outside will be, and particularly when we see the vaccinated versus unvaccinated statistics on hospitalizations. And also we could ask people to wear masks.
I think that all sounds good. I think it would be nice to have some sort of normal activity again in the park.
Yeah.
That'd be great. So, and it's always very popular. I will say also, talking to our ICF project leader, she said, I really think you're going to see an incredible spring with all the invasive removal that they did last spring and summer. So I'm eager to see if she's right. I think that'll be great. I just see that Lee Tusi joined the meeting. I don't know if you have anything that you would like to talk about since you had your forestation board meeting yesterday.
The only thing I would mention is an idea you came up with to clear some of the vines that are harming the trees, and I think that'd be a great project. going to ask for financial help for that.
Thank you. The area that I was most concerned about is, it's right on the edge of Putney Pond and Woodlands, but it's not actually part of Putney Pond and Woodlands, but it is city property. And that's the area between Timber Ridge Drive and the dam, the Putney Pond Dam. And we had a project, well, I guess it was joint forestation board and parks, trying to cut some of the vines off that tree. It's hard work. And we spent, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours one Saturday morning, and there were quite a few of us. And we made some progress, but there's a lot left to do. And I managed to get a real good case of poison ivy. Even though I wore gloves and long sleeves, I still got it. So
Welcome to the wonderful world of maintenance.
yeah. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the proposed next meeting day and time, and I would like to get us back to our regular Monday time of 5 o'clock, and the week before council would be the 14th. Is that agreeable with everyone, or do we need to schedule a different time?
That would be fine with my schedule.
What time are the meetings, Linda?
It'd be 5 o'clock,
Okay.
and I'm assuming we'd still be remote, but I don't know. I guess that's depends on City Hall thinking.
What was the date on that, Linda?
The 15th or 14th?
14th. I am fine
Council
for
meeting
that.
that night.
No, the council meeting's the 21st, boss.
Okay, this is the 14th at 5.
Right.
Just a heads up for Linda, for the 14th at 5, Jeff will be out of town, so I'll have to be virtual. So if there is an in-person, then maybe I can just be on the phone, on speakerphone or something if you don't record it or whatever, but just.
That sounds good. Okay. Sounds good. Does
It's,
anyone?
the date's fine for me too, especially if it's virtual.
Right. Any other business? Okay, I guess we can stand adjourned. And we'll have to approve the minutes at our next meeting when we have a quorum.
Good to
Thank
see
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Hey, guys.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.